And welcome everyone to Improving ServiceNow, store files in SharePoint and leverage Copilot AI. Before we begin, I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce DTech Apps. DTech Apps is a ServiceNow partner. We were one of the first ServiceNow partners that ServiceNow reached out to start building apps on their certified ServiceNow store. The ServiceNow store is a portal that ServiceNow manages in which select companies who meet certain criteria are allowed to build products that will plug into ServiceNow seamlessly, making them just as secure and easy to use as your ServiceNow environment that you have today. Within our product lineup, we offer Doc Integrator, which consists of a number of neat little features and products, Doc Generator for form automation, and Doc Flow, of which we will be showing a little bit of those products in today's presentation. We also have another product which we will not be presenting today, and that's a task management suite, Tasker. Today it's being used by numerous enterprise organizations as well as multiple defense and federal entities for managing task management. So if you have any tools out there or any need to provide reports, say on the 5 things that you worked on this week, Tasker provides that in a second without having to go through email to do that. But today's focus is on SharePoint and ServiceNow, and so we're going to spend a little more time in the atmosphere at which Doc Integrator exists. So again, one of the things that we deal with in technology is many of us are using ServiceNow, which is the leader in workflow. And we're also in our daily lives in one way or another are being impacted by using a Microsoft product, be it SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, Copilot, OneDrive, all of these tools. So you would think that 2 leading companies that are in this business ecosystem would find a better way to work together. And at the end of the day, the most they've been able to do is ServiceNow has released an API set. So for a developer, they could go through a number of things, trial and error, to try to get them to connect. More importantly, why would you want them to connect? Why would you want to keep files in SharePoint? Well, the key is aside from SharePoint being Microsoft's most adopted product of all time, even surpassing Outlook when it was introduced almost 17 years ago, SharePoint has been great for getting teams to work together on creating content, whether it's co-authoring, editing, and then on top of the abilities of the Microsoft 365 suite, the ability to actually work on documents together, whether it's in browser or between desktop applications. SharePoint is scalable. As you have more files and content, it's very easy for SharePoint to handle those large volumes of content with ease. It's also got enterprise-grade security. Every IT department does all of their security in some form or fashion, whether it comes with user authentication or other tools that are protecting the network. Microsoft SharePoint is in there as one of the most secure tools available for the enterprise when it comes to managing content. And finally, when it comes to using SharePoint, the ability to quickly search, whether it's using metadata, titles throughout the content, being able to intelligently find what you need when you need it. And with the recent development of Copilot, Microsoft's AI engine, not only are we able to enhance the capabilities of search as it's searching through SharePoint, we're also able to leverage Copilot for a number of different features throughout your content's lifecycle, from creation to editing, managing it, and so on and so forth. And we're going to spend a little bit of time today diving into that piece of the puzzle here. So again, why would you keep your files in SharePoint? It's pretty straightforward, and I think for a number of us, this is something that we all understand and agree on. So as I said, the ServiceNow and SharePoint, getting them to work together has required an API set. It's not easy to work with. It requires a developer. Development time is expensive. And at that, many of us, a developer only lasts in their position for no more than about 1.5 years, almost 2 years if we're lucky. And when it comes time to make edits to that code, well, let's say a ServiceNow update, a SharePoint update, or another change that's going to impact your environment, Getting your integration and that code updated can be expensive, especially if you have to outsource it. And then finally, when it comes to just people developing on the ServiceNow platform, there really aren't a lot of people who are familiar with being ServiceNow developers. Developing on ServiceNow can be rigid, and even more so when it comes to using the API set that they have. It's not seamless. The documents come over and then they're cloned and then saved temporarily and then saved in a second instance and then returned back to SharePoint. It's not as easy as the experience we enjoy today when we go into SharePoint. So you've got to ask yourself, why aren't we, using a system that feels like the system we want to be working with? If our system of record is SharePoint, shouldn't everything we work with that's attaching to SharePoint feel like SharePoint? So we created Doc Integrator specifically to address this need. Clients were having issues getting the two platforms to work together. And so what we did is we came up with a tool that gets the two platforms to connect together easily without coding. It's very quick to get it up and running. It provides advanced functionality beyond just the integration. We enhance ServiceNow Cert. We can improve your forms of approval process, and we keep adding net new features to the product. So every time our product gets a new release, owners of Doc Integrator get to enjoy all those benefits right away. And also we take on all the development when it comes to the next edition of ServiceNow or SharePoint. Doc Integrator is always up to date with whatever tools are out there, ensuring compatibility backwards and forwards for the life of the systems you're using. And that's one of the key benefits of why you go with a COTS solution, a commercial off-the-shelf solution, is it's easy to use, it's easy to manage, and it's extensively able to work with both on-premise as well as SharePoint Online. So anyhow, as we continue next, I'd like to hand over today's presentation, and the bulk of the time we're going to spend today is with Mr. David Stanberg, our solutions consultant. Dave's going to demo the tools in action from the ServiceNow interface.
Thank you, David. And at DTech, we do have quite a few Davids. I'm David Sandberg, as he mentioned, a solution consultant here, and we'll walk through how you can refine documents with Microsoft Copilot, but do so with one click from inside the ServiceNow platform. So what we're looking at right now before going into Copilot is HRSD in platform. So Doc Integrator can be plugged in to any application, so HR, CSM, SPM, and even custom apps. And for those familiar with the different UIs in ServiceNow, in platform, portal, and workspace, here's platform, and we'll see an example of workspace a little bit later in the demo. So let's say an HR agent is working on a new policy, right, onboarding process. Typically, they would have documents routed around via email or maybe attached to this record. Then you would have to download them, make your edits and upload so it doesn't have that co-editing capability. And you also have to remember to delete the old version. The way that we go about it is creating just another tab within this experience. So this is Doc Integrator, connecting ServiceNow to SharePoint. Typically, we work with customers online, but we support all the way back to on-prem 2013. David, during the slides, mentioned this as well. So ServiceNow does also have the Spoke, right, an API set. It is more meant for admins and workflow based. So if you have to, let's say, create a site on the back end, but Doc Integrator takes a different approach, and we take this from the front end, as in those working on the documents themselves. So the two common use cases we come across are co-editing Word docs, PowerPoint, and Excel, and the other one is digital signatures, and we'll see how we can do that via free Adobe Reader. Before doing so, just note how easy it is to pull documents into SharePoint. They bypass ServiceNow and go directly to whatever site, library, and folder this is configured to, so you're not actually searching for documents. So going right into the crux of what we're here for today, which is Copilot, with one click, right, we can save time and make our lives easier using AI. And right now we're in a Word doc. We see Copilot even already summarized it for us. It's on the right side as well. So as long as you know how to use Word documents, we open this up directly in SharePoint. So co-editing, right, co-authoring, track changes, adding comments, all of that fun stuff is available at your fingertips. In terms of AI, we're working on a new hiring policy. So there's a few things that we hear from customers specifically in HR. The first is for this individual making the edits, they want to be able to quickly understand what the policy is about. So just creating that polished executive summary. It is also beneficial to those later that will be viewing it, so they have a quick and easy understanding of what is going on, right? AI, just like ChatGPT, but it's embedded directly into your experience. It was one click from the ServiceNow interface. Now we are in this Word document. One other piece that we commonly hear is documents need to later be tailored. So might be for this instance or over time, let's say a hiring policy is specific to a certain area, a certain region. So let's have this customized, the hiring policy based on the Americas region. Just like that, we get our response. And obviously AI, we can make any of our changes, asking them to maybe sum this up in a shorter fashion. And from there, right, you can always insert if needed into the section. And the last one that we're going to talk about is when we think of HR, it's kind of like CSM, but for internal employees. So the whole goal of HR is employee experience and also standardization across the board. So you have new hires, you want to be able to effectively and efficiently welcome them. How can we create those tailored messages to the new hires in the Americas region? And you can do that very quickly through your AI investment. So what did we see in this section? So for the editor or creator, you're saving time, making your life easier. Let's say you have then a reviewer and approver. Those people don't have to get confused about, right, what the content is. They have that quick summarization, the executive summary, essentially allowing them to understand and grasp the content. And lastly, for the business as a whole, a lot of the customers that we work with specifically are Microsoft shops, so Copilot, and they have it or they're evaluating Copilot. So if you do already have it, you're maximizing the investment across the board. And for those that are evaluating and starting with Copilot, we really encourage our customers to put themselves in a position to be successful where users adopt the technology from the start. So you're not having to bounce around between different tabs, go to ChatGPT, or even go to Copilot externally. It is right there embedded in your experience. We're also going to talk about a few other instances where Doc Integrator, that's the ServiceNow to SharePoint connection, really adds value. So one of them is one for its ease of use, but even more so for cost cutting. So we talk to organizations that use the DocuSigns of the world or Adobe Pro or Adobe Sign. We can do digital signatures directly from this experience with free Adobe Reader. Again, not having to actually pay for a digital signature solution of choice. DocuSign, the new model, right, in the cloud is charging per transaction or per signature. We open up this document via free Adobe Reader on our desktop, but we are not downloading and then having to edit or add your signature and uploading. As simple as that, add your digital signature. For those on the line in the federal government space, this does support PIV or CAX. Exit out, right? No download, upload. When we come back into this familiar ServiceNow UI and we open this document, still lives in SharePoint or OneDrive, never leaves. And this is the signature that was just applied about a minute ago, truly showing how we are always working on the most up-to-date version, and you can also revert back to a previous version if needed. So with that, I can take a pause to see if there's anything in the chat that we want to address at this time.
Yeah. So the first question that came through, we answered it in the chat, but are you able to open documents in the desktop applications like Word, Excel, PDF Reader instead of the browser?
Absolutely. So this is the Word document that we were just looking at. I opened it in a browser, right, as we specified, but you can easily bring it down to, oh, it's on my other screen. You can easily bring it down to your desktop. Yes.
Yeah. Next question, what's the process for keeping up with future upgrades to Microsoft or ServiceNow? So with Doc Integrator, which is the tool that we're using, so we push out as first as a ServiceNow partner and as a Microsoft partner, we're able to push out updates to our customers as new versions are released. So again, talking about what we were discussing in the slides about commercial off-the-shelf solutions. So keeping track of the updates and compatibility across all the different versions that are out there. Our product is, wow, we can go back, 5 or 6 different versions of ServiceNow that we're still compatible with, and we keep releasing new updates, ensuring compatibility with future versions. So what is it? We're at Yokohama now. So and Zurich that's coming out next. So we're always making sure that our product is up to date with every version that ServiceNow is doing. How you're managing your instance of ServiceNow, how you're adding or updating your systems, um, that's up to you. We're just ensuring that the product, as far as Doc Integrator is concerned, is always up to date and compatible. When we make our updates, when we edit the application, it does go through a review process at ServiceNow. They test it and will send us any feedback if something isn't compatible. So not only are we internally making, in our development team, making sure that the products are compatible with every version of ServiceNow and every version of SharePoint, Copilot, whatever Microsoft technologies that we're integrating with in our suite, but we're also having that checked over at ServiceNow. ServiceNow posts only certified applications to the ServiceNow store. So that ensures, and it'll show you a list of all the different versions of their product that we're compatible with too. So that's what we do there. Again, as a commercial off-the-shelf solution, if we're dealing with PDFs in your PDF reader, now, while your organization may have standards on different PDF reader software, whether it is Adobe PDF, Acrobat, whether it's Acrobat Reader, maybe it's another application that reads PDFs, that is, to a degree, some of that is your organization's management of your software investments. We just ensure that our software is as compatible with all the different tools that will be interacting between the content that you may have stored in ServiceNow and SharePoint. So as long as that content is in SharePoint, you can access it no matter the version through Doc Integrator.
The way we're integrating is through standard APIs that really don't change. So we constantly test against the latest versions of ServiceNow and the latest versions of SharePoint, but our underlying technology is what's being used by the browser, which a lot of our calls are browser-based, but we do have some server-based integration as well. But they're using REST calls that haven't changed in many releases. So we do validate that against the latest and greatest, and we do run it internally. So we do catch things as like Office 365 updates, or as ServiceNow releases new software. We make sure that everything stays synced between SharePoint and ServiceNow.
Perfect. And then there's a request to show how the application or the interaction in the ServiceNow service portal.
Yeah, perfect. I'm actually pulling that up on my other screen so I can demo that after. No, yeah, great question. So we are focusing on the back end of ServiceNow at the moment, right? Those fulfillers from HR, and also we're going to go into platform and workspace in a moment in CSM. And the rest of the demo is going to be focused on those end users, so the everyday employee. So yes, we'll definitely cover that. Anything else outstanding?
Nope. Let's keep moving. Thank you.
All right. So for some of those on the line, or watching this recording, you may be familiar with the workspace UI. So as mentioned on the previous screen, we can plug and play anywhere and everywhere, and we are also per user based. So we strongly encourage our customers to plug and play in ITSM, CSM, HR, or custom apps. Here we are a CSM agent, and Doc Integrator has the same exact experience, right? It is just another tab within your UI. So this is right for our Word doc for editing, and we will also have our digital signature solution. So this would be free Adobe Reader. So just so you can see it, exactly the same thing as before, right? Open up the document directly in SharePoint, and from the CSM's agent's perspective, you have Copilot at your fingertips. So creating an executive summary or anything that you need, just like we saw before for the HR agent, it is all at your disposal. So that's just the quick overview where, just for kind of relevance, in terms of time to value, you can stand these up rather quickly. I've embedded Doc Integrator in probably 8 to 10 applications. The ones that I've mentioned, including legal service delivery, ITSM, SPM, even a custom application for a customer. So that just shows how easy it is to do. I can do them in maybe 1 or 2 hours as a semi-technical resource. So developers definitely have the skill set in that regards. So the next piece, what we're going to cover, as I pull it up and move it from the other screen, is Doc Integrator from the end user or everyday employee's perspective. And what we commonly hear in this situation is you come to the portal for any type of request. You got locked out of your account, any type of FAQ, maybe a company calendar that you want to look at. The other piece for us is that Doc Integrator. So when you get inundated with documents, as opposed to searching in all different sources and trying to locate the files, you can do so in one overall search. All the files live wherever they do in terms of the knowledge base, Outlook, Teams, or this is just a fancy way to say SharePoint for us. So the one thing to mention though is this is looking at your own Outlook and Teams, so it is not looking at other accounts. And for SharePoint, if you can see something in SharePoint directly, right, by just going to your SharePoint site, library, and folder, you can see it here. If you cannot see it in SharePoint, you cannot see it here. And the last one to point out is some organizations that we speak to use knowledge articles and various knowledge bases. So this exposes anything from all of these search sources as opposed to looking at them individually and trying to find what you need. So this is the experience from the end user's perspective, and it is all part of the Doc Integrator suite that we're covering today.
And since we're here right now and we have a question in the queue, some of it might be a little repetitive to what you showed, but just specific to the question, it asks, can this work on the CSM service portal knowledge base for all users with priority on external users, and will there be a level of access by roles? So I guess the first question is, does it work with the CSM service portal knowledge base?
Yes, some customers use it with the standard SP service portal. I did an employee center. So yes, any portal.
Okay. And then the next question really is regarding people outside of the organization.
So that's really up to the customer. And the reason I say that is let's take Microsoft, for example, focusing today, it's all about SharePoint. We're primarily on SharePoint. The question is, do you want to give access to those external guests? And if the answer is yes, right, they have a login, it functions. So that's really up to the organization and their security posture. Similar to the documents that we saw before when I brought it down in app and digitally signed in Adobe, that file also lives in SharePoint. So the question is, do you also want external users having access? If so, they have that capability. If not, they wouldn't. So that is completely dependent on the customer.
Perfect. And then while we're talking about levels of access, talking about level of access by roles.
Sure. And is that in regards to documents or functionality in ServiceNow?
Documents.
Sure. So you are logging in to SharePoint. So I'm already logged in, and I'll go back over here. So if you see right here, I am logged in into a certain tenant. So you are logged into your user, and you are also, we've been asked this before, we are not duplicating the documents. So it is not being moved from SharePoint to ServiceNow. It is just being exposed, and it always lives in SharePoint, but it is based on your logged in user.
Okay, perfect. If there's additional questions, great. Looks like that
Okay.
addressed it. I'll let you continue. Thanks again.
All right,
Oh,
perfect.
before we do, we'll just it also talking about application compatibility in the Microsoft space. We mentioned SharePoint, Outlook, OneDrive as well. Does this work with OneDrive is the question.
With PDFs, that's how you bring it down to your desktop. Rob, have you seen OneDrive function in other areas aside from bringing down documents into, or even Word documents, bringing it down and open an app?
Yeah, I mean, when you say OneDrive is SharePoint under the cover, so it's really just going to depend on how you configure things, and we would want to understand, what your requirements are in that particular case. But if you have OneDrive syncing to SharePoint, the files are already kind of coming down, and if it's OneDrive by itself, there are a few things that we're working right now in terms of some of the stuff that we're doing with the SharePoint SE edition that will definitely address some more capability. So it just depends on what you're trying to do right now.
All right, thank you, Rob. David, is everything else covered in the Q&A pane?
Yep, I think we're caught
Okay.
up.
So we're actually going to take a little bit of a pivot now and talk about something called Doc Flow, which is an extension of Doc Integrator. So everything that you're seeing today is all functionality under one application called Doc Integrator certified on the store. So essentially just think of this as additional functionality. Right now, we are in the Employee Center portal. As mentioned before, this can function anywhere and everywhere in ServiceNow. So for those that are a little more technical, could be in this portal, the SP, the CSM, could even be a UI action on the back end from the fulfiller standpoint, business rule, state change, anywhere you can do something in ServiceNow, you can do a doc flow. So we come in here, right, for any type of request, as mentioned before, or knowledge articles. What we're going to focus on now is the forms themselves. So we work with a lot of organizations, especially in the government, that have tens or hundreds of standard forms across their organization. And the way that we do this is we automate or rapidly allow customers to automate any and all standardized forms in one application, where the traditional sense is to create one app per form, right? This is just a framework. As a semi-technical resource, I've automated about 40 forms over the last few months, just showing the speed and time to value. In this example, we're going to talk about an SF-182. Some of you may know that one as a certification of training form, pretty common throughout the FedCiv side of the house. So we come in here and we have to fill out a form, right? Standard policy. We're presented with a highly configurable form experience. So this is standard ServiceNow functionality. The two pieces to call out are who this is for and the form. So if you have data in ServiceNow, could exist in any table, such as the sysuser table or user profile table, take that data, auto-populate it into the form, saving hassle, right, headaches for this person, and also if they type in, the wrong phone number, adding an extra digit, then it's going to come back to them and they're going to have to then resubmit. So just making that whole process more efficient and effective. And most importantly, when we talk about the form itself, it is routed to appropriate people and groups, and we can do all of that without workflow. So once we proceed, we'll see everything in action. So we're going to be transitioning into what we call the single pane of glass for any approver. In terms of how to navigate here, if you are a heavy ServiceNow user, you access it just like any other application and module, since we are a certified app on the platform. If you are an approver that does not live and breathe in ServiceNow, you would receive an email, click on that link, and be taken into this single pane of glass. It is called a single pane of glass because everything is right at your fingertips. So all of the work that you have to do as a punch list or a to-do list is right there at your disposal. You're not combing through different disjointed areas, maybe through email or different spread or SharePoint site libraries and folders. The chain of command is not always, outlined well, where who is it going to and when is the due date, either individual or group. By now, you can probably tell we are heavily ingrained both in ServiceNow and Microsoft, so there is additionally Teams integration. And lastly, before actually going to the document itself, here on the right side, you can see tailored instructions. So we've all been in the situation where there's a 3-page form with 5 pages of instructions, and you're not exactly sure what you need to do, and you're combing through that. This allows that whole process just to be easier. Oh, this is what I need to do, and let's say this is what I need to review. We call doc flow, right? This is functionality, doc integrator enhanced, because it takes that core capability of storing this document in SharePoint, and then it's surfaceable, right? You can see it via ServiceNow, but it's always located in SharePoint, just like before. Bring this down to your desktop, but via OneDrive. It is never touching your desktop directly. Open it up in free Adobe Reader or whatever signature solution of choice. The first thing to call out is all of this data was auto-populated because it exists in ServiceNow, right? Making everyone's lives easier. And in this chain, it would be routed to the supervisor of this individual. They would review all the information, make sure everything looks good, add their digital signature, right? It is right there applied to this document. No download, upload, no saving. And once you fire this off and say it's complete, it will go to the next individual or group in the chain. And now what we can do from the approver's perspective is go down the left side and complete everything that we need to do that's outstanding. So we hear from executives, they come in at 3 p.m. every day and just knock out their forms and carry about the rest of their day.
Just to highlight something, so we added this functionality of doc flow started developing it a little over a year ago, and it's every customer of ours who owns Doc Integrator immediately was given access to this when we put out our new version. So one of the cool things when you buy commercial off-the-shelf software, as we make enhancements and improvements, or in this case, we had a number of customers who were dealing with the problem of having a virtual stack of PDF forms to sign and the need to digitize all their forms and make it an experience that's easy to use versus the traditional workflow experience. We created this and put it into the software. So one of the cool benefits that you get as businesses evolve and change or requirements come and we add new functionality, that functionality will become available to you as an owner of the software.
All right, yeah, perfect. Exactly. Doc Integrator includes the auto population of the form and this doc flow route, including obviously the SharePoint to ServiceNow connection. So now what we can do is just quickly wrap this up and open it up if there are any questions through the chat. So what we saw was 2 parts. So first, the seamless experience for a ServiceNow user, right? Those fulfillers, they're going about their day, and without locating the proper document and only doing one click, you're leveraging Microsoft Copilot, right, on your documents. And then next, we took it a step further and discovered how rapid forms automation can make anyone in the organization their lives easier.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. Usually some of the questions that we get at this time are first and foremost around licensing and pricing. This is a SaaS licensed product. It's only a couple bucks per user per month. The pricing itself, if you're a federal client and are buying through Carahsoft, you can easily see our government pricing through their price guide. For everyone else, again, it's less than $10 a person is the at a retail list price is the best way of describing it. So very, very affordable to put this in place. There is no limit on the number of users, documents, anything like that. So it's very simple and straightforward. For Rob and Dave, how is access granted to the documents?
In terms of the process, it's exactly the same way you're doing it today. All the permissions come from SharePoint. Rob, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, so we help you configure your application so that you can set up libraries on folders and different things. So in the configuration, when you're mapping your application to SharePoint, we let you say, okay, we're going to map these fields. We're going to create folders based on these fields, and we're going to use this library. And so you can apply groups and permissions in SharePoint, and as long as those are synced with groups and permissions in ServiceNow, then that data will be protected based on that syncing. We also provide the ability to configure rules-based mapping to say, what if you want the permissions to change based on metadata and ServiceNow changing. We give you the ability to map users and groups into those changes. So we can support really complex models for permissions or really simple library-based, folder-based stuff. So it really just depends on what your requirements are, but we are able to pretty easily support the different ways that you need to secure documents.
Thanks, Rob. With that, I'm going to conclude today's presentation. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next month. Cheers.